There's a certain truth that's so raw and uncomfortable that some women will twist themselves into knots to avoid looking at it. They'll build whole narratives, blame entire genders, rewrite reality in their heads just so they don't have to entertain one simple possibility. It's not really about getting older. It's not just about looks. It's not even primarily about the fear of ending up alone. The truth that quietly terrifies them more than anything is this: they might be the main reason they're still single. Not all men, not some evil society, not bad luck or timing. Them, their choices, their habits, their mindset. And I want to break down why that realization feels so brutal and why dodging it almost guarantees long-term loneliness. The distance between what's posted publicly and what's lived privately is enormous. Online, it's all living my best life. I don't need a man, solo and thriving. But behind closed doors, completely different story. I talk to women who cry themselves to sleep because no one is choosing them, who stare at their phone every few minutes hoping for a text that never shows up, who tell everyone they love their independence while secretly feeling like independence was something forced on them, not chosen. One client of mine, 38, very successful lawyer, constantly shares about boss babe energy and female empowerment. Yet in our sessions, she admits she hasn't been held in 2 years, hasn't had a genuine date in a year and a half, attends weddings by herself, then sneaks out early because watching other couples dance hurts too much. But if you scroll her Instagram, you'd swear she's living a highlight reel. That gap between the curated feed and the real quiet moments at home is where the pain sits. The emotional weight of unwanted solitude is heavy. It's walking into a silent home night after night. It's an empty bed that somehow feels bigger and colder as time goes on. It's the creeping thought that if you vanished, it might be days before anyone noticed. No one asking if you got home safe. No one actually caring how your day really went. No one including you in their vision of the future. And what makes it worse? Our culture has started glamorizing this exact isolation. Articles, influencers, shows, all pushing the idea that being single is the ultimate form of empowerment, that wanting partnership is weakness, that craving love means you're less evolved. So a lot of women end up suffering in silence, insisting they're thriving while feeling empty inside. Because in the current narrative, admitting loneliness feels like admitting failure. Layered on top of that is a constant message that removes their accountability. Modern messaging often paints women as inherently flawless. If she's single, it's because men are trash. If she's struggling, it's because the system failed her. If she's miserable, then the blame has to land anywhere but on her own behavior. This protective bubble might feel comforting, but it blocks the self-reflection needed for change. Even asking the question, "Why am I still single?" can trigger anger, because hidden in that question is the suggestion that maybe, just maybe, there's something she can adjust, some decision she keeps repeating, some pattern she hasn't faced. But that can't be possible if, from childhood, she's been told she's extraordinary exactly as she is, and any man would be lucky to have her no matter what. So, instead, convenient explanations show up, explanations that feel good but keep her stuck. Relationships harm women more than men. Do they? Then why do women initiate the majority of divorces? Why do they so often walk away with primary custody, alimony, and a good chunk of assets? All the good men are taken. Funny how plenty of other women manage to find them. Men are intimidated by my success. Is it really your success? Or how you weaponize that success in conversation and attitude? These popular lines don't stick around because they're consistently true. They stick around because they're comfortable. They keep the ego intact. They avoid painful self-audits. They allow someone to stay exactly the same while expecting completely different results. It's always easier to say men are the problem than to ask honestly, what am I doing that might be pushing good men away? I had a client who spent 5 years repeating the same script. Men were intimidated by her PhD. Men couldn't handle her salary. Men were threatened by her independence. Then she watched her assistant, less educated, lower income, equally independent, get married to a fantastic guy. The mental conflict she experienced in that moment was almost unbearable, because the story she'd been telling herself no longer matched reality. What's even more controversial to acknowledge is that in many modern relationships,
the dynamics often lean in women's favor. Emotionally, men are expected to act like personal therapists. Domestically, a lot of men are pulling equal weight or more, especially in dual-income homes. Financially, men still tend to carry a larger share of the burden. Legally, in many places, the system overwhelmingly protects women in cases of divorce and custody disputes. Yet somehow, the dominant story remains that relationships are a bad deal for women. That doesn't mean there aren't abusive or unfair situations. Of course there are, but the blanket narrative doesn't match the full picture. Then there are the standards. Some women have standards so contradictory that no real human can pass. They want a man who's strong, but never too masculine, successful, but always free, confident, but never disagreeable, traditional, but also a full-time feminist, pays for everything but never expects influence, leads but also constantly defers to her. That's not a partner they're describing. That's a custom-built fantasy avatar. The confusion gets worse when men actually give feedback and it's instantly dismissed. Men say, "I didn't call her again because she was rude to the waiter." The response becomes, "He just couldn't handle a strong woman." Men say, "She seemed emotionally unstable." The response, "Men are scared of women's emotions." Any feedback from a man gets reframed as male weakness instead of potentially helpful information. A male friend told me about a date where the woman spent 2 hours trashing her exes, constantly interrupted him, and checked her phone all through dinner. When he chose not to pursue her again, she told her friends he was intimidated by her confidence. He wasn't intimidated, he was turned off by her behavior. But she'll likely never see that because that kind of honesty has become socially forbidden. The "men are intimidated" mantra is, in most cases, pure self-delusion. Men aren't scared of strong women. They're uninterested in constant masculine energy coming from someone they're supposed to be attracted to. They don't run away from success. They step away from combative, competitive attitudes.
They're not threatened by independence. They just don't see the benefit of building a life with someone who loudly insists she doesn't need anyone. The reasons many women stay single for years at a time are often internal. Health neglected, emotions all over the place, bitterness worn like a signature scent, sky-high expectations that never get adjusted, old trauma left untreated, social skills underdeveloped. Acknowledging any of that requires admitting imperfection, and in some circles, that's been turned into a sin. Here's another hard reality. Appearance matters. Not just weight, though yes, that's part of it, but hygiene, personal style, effort, overall presentation. I meet women who haven't changed their hairstyle, wardrobe, or overall look in 10 years, then wonder why they're no longer getting the same male attention they did at 25. Women who've gained 40 or 50 pounds, but expect potential partners to respond exactly as they did before. Women who put zero effort into how they show up, but demand maximum attraction and effort from men. Lifestyle choices also play a huge role in desirability. Partying every weekend at 35 or 40? For many men, that's a red flag. No basic cooking skills but insisting you're wife material? It raises questions. Massive debt but wanting a man to be a stable provider while you change nothing? That's a concern. Difficulty keeping your own space reasonably clean but wanting to build a home with someone else? That's an issue. These aren't moral condemnations, they're reasonable evaluations of partnership risk. Age also matters whether we like it or not. A 38-year-old woman who wants children presents a different set of realities than a 28-year-old. Fertility timelines are a real thing. Men who genuinely want a family think about that. It's not cruelty, it's practicality. But pointing this out often triggers outrage because it's a truth that can't be changed by feelings or politics. It can only be accepted and planned around. Then there are habits and behaviors that push quality men away but get excused or reframed. Constantly seeking validation on social media. Keeping male friends as backups. Letting an ex hang around in the background. Drinking heavily but calling it wine culture. Explosive moods labeled as passion or just being a fiery personality. These patterns sabotage relationships, but acknowledging them would mean making changes. Emotional chaos gets marketed as depth. I'm just a deeply feeling person. Sometimes that's true, sometimes it's unregulated emotions. I'm so passionate. Often it's just poor impulse control. I'm complicated. Many times that means you're exhausting to be around. Men aren't avoiding your depth, they're avoiding your dysfunction. But going to therapy means admitting something is off, so the chaos continues. A lack of discipline tends to appear everywhere. Can't commit to any workout routine, but expects a long-term committed partner. Can't maintain friendships, but wants a lifelong teammate. Can't manage personal finances, but says she wants to build wealth together. Can't control her temper, but wants a safe, intimate emotional connection. Discipline in one domain usually hints at discipline in others, and the absence of it is visible. Rude, critical behavior gets repackaged as keeping it real or having high standards. Being harsh becomes knowing my worth. Constant complaining is framed as just being honest. Combative behavior is spun as not letting anyone walk all over me. But consistently unpleasant is still unpleasant. Men aren't rejecting authenticity, they're rejecting behavior that makes life harder, not better. The family topic is also bigger than some women want to admit. Not wanting kids is completely valid, but it automatically filters out men who dream of being fathers. Wanting kids from day one can come off as desperate if it overshadows everything else. Having multiple kids from multiple fathers raises questions about decision-making and stability. Being unsure about children at 35 while dating men who definitely want a family wastes everyone's time. Men think about these things, and they should. When it comes to self-improvement, a lot of women hear change and interpret it as change for a man and instantly reject it. But it's not about molding yourself for someone else. It's about becoming a stronger, healthier, more attractive version of yourself. People improve themselves for every other goal. Study for careers, train for sports, learn skills for hobbies. Somehow improving for the sake of becoming a better partner gets labeled as betrayal of self. Certain peer groups, especially heavily ideological ones, actually block growth. Any suggestion of adjustment is labeled victim blaming. Any male perspective is written off as gaslighting or patriarchy. Any traditional value like cooperation, respect, or interdependence is dismissed as internalized misogyny. These echo chambers keep women trapped in cycles of resentment that almost guarantee staying single. I watched one friend group torpedo a woman's shot at a good relationship. She met a man who kindly suggested she might want to cut back on drinking because it concerned him. Her friends immediately screamed, "Red flag! He's controlling! He's trying to change you!" She dumped him. 5 years later, she's still single. Still drinking just as much, still saying she can't find anyone on his level. Taking ownership of healing past trauma gets replaced with endless victim narratives. Yes, terrible things have happened to many women. Those experiences are real and valid. But using past pain as a permanent shield to excuse present dysfunction doesn't make someone more lovable. It makes them harder to be with. Men aren't rehab centers. They're hoping for partners, not long-term projects. Then there's the therapy talk without therapy work phenomenon. Some women can name every attachment style, can explain trauma responses, can recite the language of boundaries and triggers, but haven't actually changed their reactions at all. They use psychological vocabulary to justify bad behavior instead of addressing it. Saying "I have anxious attachment" doesn't give you a free pass to act toxic. It's a sign you have a responsibility to deal with it. Men are allowed to be selective too. They can care about body count, they can care about mental health history, they can care about family background and stability. They can care about debt, spending habits, emotional control, social grace, family goals, matching values. They evaluate all of that, just like women do. The difference is, when women are picky, they're praised for having standards. When men are picky, they're called shallow or oppressive. I remember one man telling me he stopped seeing a woman because she had no relationship with her father, constant drama with her mother, and every sibling seemed to be in chaos. He didn't hate her for it, but he saw a pattern, ongoing dysfunction and future stress. She told her circle he was afraid of commitment. In reality, he was afraid of never-ending chaos.
Men also do a full lifestyle scan. How does she treat waiters and baristas? How does she act under pressure? What does she do when conflict appears? Talk? Manipulate? Explode? Shut down? Who are her friends and what are their lives like? How does she spend money? What does her living space say about her priorities? All of these small data points predict what long-term partnership with her might feel like, and men pay attention, even if they never articulate it. As men age, values and stability start to matter more than looks alone. Younger guys will barrel right through a wall of red flags because she's attractive. Older, more experienced men won't. They've learned the hard way that beauty fades, but chaos can last a lifetime. They're craving peace over constant high drama, stability over nonstop stimulation, cooperation over project management. And yet some women who bring constant instability wonder why mature, serious men never stick around. The good news is that change is possible and powerful. I've watched women completely transform their dating lives by turning inward instead of pointing outward. They lost excess weight, not for men, but for health and confidence. They addressed mental health struggles in therapy. They rediscovered their femininity, warmth, and kindness. They shifted their attitude from entitlement to gratitude. And suddenly, their experiences with men changed. One client of mine, 36, spent years saying there were no good men in her city. Eventually, she decided to work on herself. She went to therapy for her anger, dropped 30 pounds, cut alcohol way down, picked up real hobbies beyond scrolling and Netflix, started treating people with more patience. Within a year, she met her current husband. Same city, same pool of men, same apps. Different version of her, different outcomes. Real self-reflection starts with questions that sting. Am I someone people enjoy being around? Would I honestly date me? What do I truly bring to the table besides my presence and expectations? Am I healing or bleeding on everyone around me? Do I add value or quietly drain it? These questions hurt because they often reveal gaps. But those gaps are exactly where the work needs to be done. Practical discipline shifts make a huge difference. Consistent exercise, basic financial control, intentional emotional regulation, managing time well, keeping a home that feels welcoming, building social skills beyond sarcasm and memes. None of this is about perfection, it's about becoming a capable partner instead of someone who needs constant rescuing. A partner should add to your life, not become your full-time manager. Emotional maturity is one of the main things men look for long-term. Can she disagree without turning it into a war? Can she admit when she's wrong without collapsing or deflecting? Can she support without trying to control? Can she listen to feedback without instantly attacking? Can she handle stress without destroying the people around her? Those traits matter more over decades than any dress size. Healthier habits are attractive. Reading instead of endless scrolling. Cooking instead of always ordering in. Moving your body instead of making excuses. Creating rather than only consuming. Choosing growth over comfort. Gratitude over constant complaining. These choices signal to others that you're investing in yourself. And people are generally more willing to invest in those who are already investing in themselves. Traditional relational qualities like respect, kindness, nurture, supportiveness, grace, loyalty, discretion, femininity still work beautifully regardless of what some online discourse says. These aren't oppression, they're strengths that make relationships more peaceful and fulfilling. But some women reject them as regressive while wondering why every relationship feels like a battlefield.
The amount of rejection that could be prevented through honest change is staggering. Most of the things keeping many women single are adjustable: weight, attitude, communication style, habits, skills, mindset. Even the realities of age can be softened through health, energy, and charm. But change can't start until there's an admission that the current way isn't delivering what they want. Here's what some women don't fully realize: a lot of men want to choose them. Men want companionship, partnership, love. But they want it with someone who adds peace, not chaos, who cooperates, not competes, who appreciates, not constantly criticizes. From a male perspective, if different men over many years all end up stepping back, the common factor probably isn't all men. It's like being fired from every job and saying every boss was crazy. After a while, self-reflection isn't optional anymore if you want a different pattern. Meanwhile, certain strands of modern feminism act like a protection racket. Any mention of female accountability gets framed as misogyny. Any male standard is called oppressive. Any traditional relational wisdom is mocked. It feels supportive on the surface, but it keeps women from seeing how they might be contributing to their own results. I talk to women drowning in this ideology, confused about why they're lonely when they did everything right: prioritized career, guarded independence, refused to settle. Now they're 40, single, childless, and quietly asking themselves what went wrong. The path that promised empowerment often delivered isolation instead. Friend groups can make it worse. Misery loves company, and single friends can unknowingly keep each other single. They pass around bad advice, share bitter takes, and frame sabotage as support. "You don't need him" slowly becomes "you don't need anyone," and eventually turns into "why does no one want me?" Social media then pours gasoline on the fire. Women compare their real, messy lives to carefully edited highlight reels. They chase likes instead of real connection. They perform happiness online while ignoring their internal emptiness. They build a polished digital version of themselves while neglecting any real personal development. Over time, the gap between who they pretend to be and who they actually are becomes so wide it's hard to cross. Dating apps add another layer of illusion. They create a constant sense of endless options. Why improve yourself when the next swipe might be the one who won't ask you to change? Why face your patterns when maybe, just maybe, the next guy won't care? Why appreciate a good man when there might be a perfect one just 3 profiles away? The problem is that mythical perfect match never shows up, and the good men eventually stop trying. Our cultural allergy to accountability keeps many people stuck. Everything must be someone else's fault. Every disappointment needs an external villain. But growth demands ownership. Improvement demands admission that something in your current approach isn't working. Some women don't reach that point until much later, often in their 40s when options narrow and reality is impossible to ignore. After years of saying men were the problem, they suddenly realized some of that blame was misplaced. The anger at men slowly morphs into regret, then hopefully into a desire to change. But so many years have already passed. When I look at the success stories, the pattern is almost identical. A woman finally admits she might be part of the issue. She seeks honest feedback. She listens, even when it stings. She works on herself, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. She intentionally develops qualities that add value to someone else's life, and, almost like clockwork, her experiences with men change. The world doesn't change. The dating pool doesn't magically improve. She does, and that makes all the difference. Of course, this message will trigger resistance. Some women are already drafting explanations in their head for why none of this applies to them, why their situation is uniquely men's fault, why their standards are just high, why any suggestion of change is telling women to shrink. But that immediate resistance is exactly the prison. Male selectivity is often more rational than women want to believe. Most men aren't randomly rejecting amazing women. They're turning away from specific patterns: drama, disrespect, instability, entitlement, chaos that predict bad outcomes. Understanding what those patterns are and working on them is the key that unlocks doors that felt permanently sealed. Physical presentation plays a bigger role than some want to admit. This isn't about perfection, it's about effort. Fitness hints at discipline and self-respect. Personal style signals awareness and intention. Grooming shows that you care how you show up in the world. These things aren't shallow details, they're reflections of how someone manages themselves.
Mental health also matters. More men are paying attention to emotional stability. Many have been deeply hurt by partners who made them emotional punching bags or turned them into unpaid therapists. Anxiety, depression, personality disorders, these things need management, not denial. Using relationships as a bandage for untreated mental health issues tends to destroy the relationship. The people you surround yourself with also speak volumes. If your inner circle is full of bitter, chronically single, man-bashing women, it sends a signal about your mindset. If you spend time with couples who actually enjoy each other, that sends a different signal. Your circle reflects your values and often predicts your future. Communication style either builds connection or burns it down. Clear beats manipulative. Direct beats passive-aggressive. Calm beats explosive. Constructive beats critical. Many men are tired of constant emotional warfare dressed up as talking things through. They are drawn to women who can have hard conversations without tearing everything apart. There's also a reality some women hate but can't erase. The sexual marketplace doesn't treat men and women identically. Youth and physical attractiveness tend to be a woman's strongest initial advantages, and those fade over time. Status and resources tend to be male advantages, and those often grow with age. You can call that unfair, but calling it unfair doesn't change that it exists. Working with reality is harder than complaining about it, but it's also far more effective. Time is a factor many women ignore. Men can biologically father children much later in life, even into their 60s or 70s. Women don't have that same window. That biological difference creates different pressures and timelines. Pretending that doesn't matter doesn't make it disappear. It just makes planning impossible. Then there's the partnership model versus the princess model. True partners contribute, each in their own ways, to building a life together. Princesses expect service, attention, resources, and emotional labor without bringing much back. Many modern women say they want partnership, but behave like princesses. Men see that contradiction and quietly opt out. Certain skills matter more in day-to-day life than degrees or titles. Can you create a home that feels peaceful? Can you manage basic finances? Can you throw together simple, healthy meals? Can you handle conflict without nuking the relationship? Can you support a partner through hard times? Can you nurture children if you choose to have them? These are core partnership skills. Some women have incredible resumes and giant academic achievements, but lack the practical abilities that actually make a shared life work. Another problem is projection. Many women assume men want what women want: career prestige, exotic travel, a long list of accomplishments, nonstop independence. Those things can be nice bonuses, but most men prioritize very different core qualities: friendliness, femininity, warmth, loyalty, support, peace. Offering mainly what men don't deeply value while lacking what they do is a recipe for disappointment. Often, the intervention that would help never comes. Friends don't sit each other down and say, "Look, your standards don't match what you're bringing. Your attitude is scaring men away. Your behavior is toxic." Instead, they say, "You're a queen, don't change for anyone," which feels good but keeps her stuck. Meanwhile, older generations had wisdom that's being thrown away.
Grandmothers and great-grandmothers knew how to attract and keep a man without losing themselves. They understood male psychology, developed real skills, and offered tangible value. Now that knowledge gets dismissed as outdated or oppressive by granddaughters who can't maintain a relationship past 6 months. The actual formula for better outcomes is painfully simple. Become someone worth choosing. Build real value. Work on your issues. Bring something beyond demands and emotional drama. Be enjoyable to be around. Show appreciation. Put more in than you take out. None of that is rocket science. The hardest part isn't the work itself, it's swallowing pride long enough to admit that the work is needed. Underneath all of this is a deep fear. Because if some women accept they're the main reason they're single, they also have to face that they wasted years, that some of the hurt was self-inflicted, that loneliness didn't just happen to them, it was partly built by their choices, and that their future will only look different if they change. That's terrifying. But here's the flip side. That same truth is incredibly freeing. Because if your choices helped create your situation, your choices can create a different one. Owning the problem means you can own the solution. The truth that scares you can also be the key that unlocks happiness, but only if you look at it directly, without blaming, without deflecting, without running back to comforting lies. Women who face this truth and act on it usually find what they've been searching for. Women who reject it tend to repeat the same patterns year after year, growing more bitter, more confused, and more convinced that the world is against them. The difference isn't luck. It's self-awareness plus action. Some women hearing this will feel attacked. Good. That sting you feel, that's your brain recognizing that some part of this might apply to you. Sit with that feeling. Don't drown it out with TikTok, group chats, or another rant about men. Examine it. Use it. Because the alternative is another 5 or 10 years of the same cycle. Same disappointments, same tears, same conversations with friends about how there are no good men left. When a woman genuinely leans into healthier femininity, grounded, strong, soft, self-aware, the masculine response is usually immediate and obvious. Men are wired to respond to certain traits and energies. When women stop trying to fight that wiring and start working with it, attraction happens. Not from every man, but from men who are actually worth having. The tragic part is how avoidable so much female loneliness really is. A few consistent changes, better habits, emotional work, genuine humility can transform everything. But the ideologies that discourage any change, that frame accountability as betrayal of sisterhood, keep a lot of women exactly where they are, alone, confused, and angry. I see the fallout in older women who believed the wrong voices for decades. Women in their 40s and 50s who spent half a lifetime blaming men and culture and never turning inward. Now they're confronting aging, often without a partner, without children, without the family foundation they assumed would just happen. They're furious at the world, but deep down, many are furious at themselves for trusting ideas that felt empowering, but didn't actually work. The younger generation still has time to course correct. You can look at what happened before you, recognize the patterns, accept the hard truths, and choose another path. Or you can repeat the script, then wake up one day wondering where all the good men went, while refusing to ask why those good men walked right past you. Right now, there's kind of a market correction happening. Women who expect everything while offering very little are quietly getting left behind. Women who bring genuine value, kindness, stability, respect, cooperation, effort, are getting chosen. The entitlement bubble is slowly popping. Reality is pushing its way back in, no matter what certain ideologies promote. Men are not your enemy. Biology is not oppression. Standards are not discrimination.
preferences are not hatred. The sooner some women accept this, the sooner they can play the real game instead of arguing with the rulebook. That means letting go of comforting lies and choosing uncomfortable truths. In the end, the truth many women fear more than anything isn't rejection, judgment, or even loneliness. It's the realization that they had far more power over their romantic outcomes than they ever admitted, and that they chose blame, excuses, and ideology instead of growth, responsibility, and change. That the situation was more fixable than they wanted to believe, but they stayed stuck because growth hurt. If any of this hits home, I want to hear from you. Women who have faced brutal truths and turned things around, what snapped you out of that blame loop? What was your turning point? Men who walked away from women who refused any accountability, what specific behaviors finally made you say, "I'm done"? Drop your stories below. Let's open up the conversation that almost no one wants to have, the one that might be uncomfortable, even painful, but necessary. Because the cozy lies got us into this mess, and only confronting the hard truth has any chance of getting us out.